Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper. For those of you not familiar with the show, my guests and I will cover every angle of real estate under the sun, from interest rates to the economy to what's happening in Washington. Anything that affects our local real estate or mortgage markets will be covered here. If you got credit issues and you're trying to get your credit squared away so you can purchase your first home, or looking to upgrade to your next home and have just had financial troubles which have doomed your credit and you feel like you're just kind of lost and want to get back on track, we can help you out. You've got questions and we've got the answers. Make sure that you're joining us every Monday on 1580 a.m. from 9 to 10 in the morning. And call in the off-air phone number if you have any questions at all. It's 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. A reminder, that's an off-air phone number, so call that phone number, leave your name and phone number, contact information, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Or you can reach out to us via the web at realestate360live.com. That's realestate360live.com. Remember, if it's real estate, it's covered here. Got a great show lined up for you guys today. We've got our market predictions for 2013. Since this is the first show we've actually done for the new year, we want to go ahead and let you know where we think everything is headed for the year of 2013. We have many other things to discuss as far as the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act was extended. I want to give you the details on that. Also, basically, Congress and the President have agreed upon raising taxes on pretty much everyone. Joining me on our panel today to discuss the numerous issues of last week and what's on deck for this week is Louis Cammarosano, who is the general manager of HomeGain. Louis is often cited in the media as an industry expert in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, CNN Money, Fox Business, Smart Money, MSN, and numerous others. Louis, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm grand. Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. We have a lot to jump into, Louis. A lot has transpired over the last couple of weeks. You and I spoke at length. We were trying to figure out, was Congress and the President going to get some sort of deal done? They finally did get a deal done.
As we predicted. They would
right.
not allow the spending train to stop.
Right. Yep. And much to the dismay of the majority of Americans, taxes are being raised on basically virtually every working American. That's not, and the interesting thing, I watch these social media feeds and what's being said on TV. Obama had put out there the fact that, he did not intend on raising taxes on the middle class, yet they basically, the 2% Social Security, the temporary hold on that 2%, they let expire.
Well, it's actually a 50% raise. It went from the payroll deduction had been cut from 6.2 to 4.2 temporarily, just as the Bush tax cuts are supposed temporary, and they allowed that to expire. So now the payroll, Social Security, income tax withholding goes from 4.2 to 6.2, and then the top rate for those making $400,000 and $450,000, if you're a couple, goes from the old rate from 36% to 39%. So they've set themselves up to say, hey, I didn't raise taxes. All I did was not allow the tax cuts to expire.
Right, yeah.
I allowed them to expire, and now we're back to where we are, and now you can say, now we can raise taxes because we need more revenue to cover all the spending I want to do.
Well, and then even more interesting is the way that Obama came about. He came out with basically, the celebratory tone and stated, this is his words, thanks to the votes of Democrats and Republicans in Congress, I will sign a law that raises the taxes on the wealthiest Americans while preventing a middle-class tax hike.
Well, congratulations on raising taxes on the wealthy. I don't know what that accomplishes.
Yeah.
And then also congratulations on raising taxes on everyone else.
Right. And then,
without reducing the deficit, which supposedly was the whole point of the fiscal cliff, was we were supposed to cut spending and make a meaningful impact on the deficit, which didn't happen. So I don't know why there's high fives all around.
Yeah, high fives all around. And at the end of the day, these tax hikes aren't going to do anything. You know what I mean? What is that going to cover? It's not. I mean, they're spending more money day in and day out. They've got more programs that they plan on spending more money on. This little hike is not covering anything. Even if you and I even spoke, even if they were to raise taxes up to 50% or whatever they could even dream of, it still wouldn't cover their spending habits. So at this point in time, it's like temporary solutions, temporary fixes that which they think they're fixes. They're really not fixes at all, but they're just kicking the can down the road.
We talk about if you do raise taxes, you also could end up with less revenue anyway. If you look at the Laffer curve or any other studies that show that as you raise taxes on income, people find ways to make less income, or you take their incentive away and they actually make less income, so you receive less tax revenues.
Yeah, I mean it's really
it's a symbolic gesture, and I'm not sure that that's the will of the people. That somehow the country's going to be better off because 1% of the population somehow is going to make or have less money in 2013.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the overall intentions was to stimulate the economy, to get things moving. I mean, the whole point of what the Federal Reserve is doing by buying mortgage-backed securities and suppressing interest rates is to be able to try and stimulate the housing market, get things going again. But that yet basically now 77% of all Americans now have 2% less at a bare minimum in their paychecks, and they feel that that's going to somehow stimulate the economy. How is that going to help housing? How is that going to help, people going out there to buy more things? It's less money coming to them.
I think it's also not going to help Social Security because, as you know, as that money comes in, it's not like it gets set aside and strengthens the Social Security fund. That gets thrown into the general pot and pays for the rest of the spending.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGate. Within that same vote for the fiscal cliff, they did, and I wanted to talk about this, Louis, because you and I had touched on it numerous times. The Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act was extended in this same vote, which I figured it probably would have been, and I just felt like that there's so many short sales and foreclosures still going on in the market today that they almost had to do this. So for those of you out there that basically are upside down on your property or going through a short sale transaction or potentially thinking about short selling your home, and if you're still unfamiliar with the jargon short sale, what that really means is that you're shorting the payoff to your lender. So let's say that you owe $150,000 to the bank, and you know that all the houses in your neighborhood are only selling for $75,000. There's a deficiency there of roughly $75,000. You couldn't sell your home as a normal sale because you obviously by the time you have real estate fees and all the other tax stamps and everything else that you have to pay out in a normal transaction, you would have to come to the table with probably $75,000, $80,000, $90,000. So what you do is you go to the bank and ask them if potentially short sale. You ask them, request a short sale packet from them. You tell them you're struggling, you're unable to keep up with your payments or whatever your hardship is at the time, lost your job, you're going through a divorce. I mean, there's numerous different hardships, and if you'd like a list of hardships, you can call me at the off-air number 877-245-2030, and I'd be glad to get one over to you. But the good news for this Debt Relief Act being extended is that if you do short sale and you have that deficiency and the lender allows the short sale to go through, they agree to let you short sell the property, and you have a deficiency of $75,000, that that deficiency that they could potentially come after you in 1099 you for that as taxable income, as long as it's your primary residence, and I believe that there's other caps in there, and I can give you the detailed information right from the bill, but you won't be held liable for that money, that taxable income. This is a big thing because many people were like, well, why in the world would I short sale if there's not that debt relief is still in place? And I feel like that's why they extended it. It's retroactive back to 2012 and includes all of 2013. So this is probably going to be good for another year. We don't have the definitive deadline. In the same bill, they also are giving a tax credit of up to $500 is available to homeowners who made energy improvements on their home in 2012, and that'll also be available in 2013. So they kind of crammed all that in here into this vote that they had on the fiscal cliff. What's interesting is that, like you said, they didn't deal with any of the expenditures, money that they're spending out, and now we're right back to dealing with the debt ceiling.
Oh, you're going to have that in 2 months. And, Ryan, that bill was 157 pages, and it passed in 3 minutes, which you mean, again, no one read the bill.
Yep.
And there was also more tax credits and spending in that bill I mean, that was a good one that they extended the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act, but there was $46 million for motor speedways, $109 million worth of tax breaks for rum makers. There was a 10% tax break for people who buy electric scooters or cars up to $2,500. There's a $59 million tax break for algae growers. So they haven't learned their – it's still a very political game where wherever their party backers are, where their constituencies are, if they want money earmarked to them, it's going to get into one of these bills. And then they're going to say that we accomplished a grand goal when really each senator accomplished his main or her main goal of keeping their paid constituents happy, whether it's welfare, whether it's Social Security, Medicare, green subsidies, oil subsidies, military spending, whatever it is, that's really the exercise. It's not really to get the deficit down or come to some deal to get the deficit down. It's a deal to make sure nothing changes and somebody gets something extra.
Yeah, as well as
that dynamic, you're going to have more spending because everyone wants something extra. And no one wants whatever they have coming to them cut.
In the midst of all that happening, they also got a pay raise. I mean,
it was by executive order. By
executive
Obama. I don't know why he did that, and I think they rejected that.
Did they end up rejecting it?
In a separate vote, yeah.
Okay, that was rejected because I know that was something that Obama had thrown out there, and I'm like, and then you got all this
symbolic. I mean, if you're trying to cut spending,
yeah.
Well, then why does Obama go to Hawaii and spend $10 million?
Right. I mean, it's just leaving a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It's like everything that they, leading up to the election, all the time they spend campaigning. We never once heard any of them give details as to what they were going to cut. And they couldn't because they don't know. They don't plan on cutting anything. They plan on
that's the exact reason. They don't have any plans to cut anything, so they don't want to be caught in a lie saying we're going to cut this and that. And Obama did say, if he gets in again, he's going to raise taxes. I'm not sure that's why people voted for him again.
Yeah, well, you know what? I feel like many people voted for him just on the premise that they felt like, they were going to things were going to stay the same. They were going to stay exactly the same as they were before, and that taxes weren't going to change. They were going to get the same amount on their paycheck. They weren't going to worry about somebody coming in and actually cutting out their entitlements. And you know what? They're actually going to get higher taxes. And to be honest, what other option does Congress and the president have at this point if they continue to spend and spend and spend? Their only option is to tax more. Right?
Well, no, their option is, and it's kind of strange, and we should touch on this, probably have a break coming up, but the Fed came out with their statement, the minutes from their, I think it was the December meeting, and they're indicating that maybe they're going to stop QE4 sometime this year, and that begs the question, then who's going to cover all the government spending and the debt that's associated with it if the Fed isn't going to be buying those bonds?
Yeah, and I don't know why that was even thrown out there. We will jump back on that when we get back from the break. But for a program that the Fed has said has been working for quantitative easing, basically the stimulus package where they were buying up basically all of the treasury bonds that the U.S. has issued, but also basically pretty much the majority of mortgage-backed securities. For them to say that this is a program that's been successful and working, and they had said that they planned on doing this for an extended period of time. And now they choose now as the time where they're basically going to say that they're going to probably be cutting that off.
All talk, Ryan, 100% talk.
100%. I agree with you. And you know what it is? It's almost like they're saying that things are turning the corner. It's giving, except people were selling off bonds, and last week mortgage interest rates started to rise back again. So it's almost like counterproductive for them to say that, though, Lewis. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, it's productive for them because if they see after the fiscal cliff deal that it looks like people are starting to lose confidence in the U.S. dollar because we can't get our deficit down, and they start turning to other assets like gold and silver, then they have a problem. So they say, we don't have a problem. We're not going to continue to do this. This QE stuff is temporary, and the dollar will strengthen because we'll stop buying the bonds because the economy's back. 3 or 6 months from now, there'll be some other crisis, the debt ceiling, whatever, and they will continue. If they were to pull QE3, the whole economy would collapse because that's what's holding it up.
The Fed equals the lender of last resort.
The only resort.
Of only resort. When we come back, we will jump into the Fed's December meeting, and we'll get to some of your questions when we come back. Stay right there.